What if life was never meant to be figured out in a straight line? What if every detour in your 20s, every heartbreak, every restless night staring at the ceiling, wondering if you're falling behind, was never a mistake, but part of an unseen architecture far more intricate than you could grasp at the time? There's a rhythm we often miss when we're young, a quiet, sacred tempo beneath the noise of comparison and urgency. We rush to be whole, to be known, to be right. But growth isn't loud. It hums in the stillness, stretches through missteps, and blooms in the aftermath of letting go. Oh, the universe doesn't waste a moment. Not your confusion, not your courage, not even your chaos. The 13 things I wish I knew back then weren't answers. They were invitations, because the real magic? It's not in knowing everything. It's in realizing you were always becoming exactly who you were meant to be. Absolutely. Here's an 800-word expanded segment for key point 1. Your inner voice knows before the world approves, written in a reflective, grounded, and emotionally resonant tone, fully aligned with your overarching themes. Let me take you back for a moment. Imagine standing at the edge of something new. Maybe it's a job, a relationship, a move, or even just a decision to say yes to something that scares the hell out of you. You feel it in your gut, that quiet hum of, this is right, even if you can't explain it yet. But before you take the leap, what do most of us do? We pause, we hesitate, and then we start pulling the room. We ask for advice. We scroll for examples. We analyze whether the path we feel drawn to is socially acceptable, respected, or even recognizable to the people around us. That right there is one of the biggest traps of your 20s. You silence the voice that's already guiding you to wait for approval from people who can't hear it. And the real kicker? Most of them are just as unsure as you. Nobody tells you how loud the world will be when you're still learning to hear yourself. But here's what I wish I had known. Your inner voice doesn't scream. It whispers. It nudges. It doesn't come with a neon sign or a checklist of logical reasons. It just knows. And the more you ignore it, the quieter it gets. Not because it disappears, but because your trust in it erodes. We spend so much time trying to gain the world's permission to follow what we already know is right for us. But truth doesn't need permission. It just needs courage. And most of the time, it's not the world that doubts us. It's us that doubts whether we're allowed to want something different than what we were handed. Here's the truth no one preps you for in your 20s. People will project their own fears onto your vision. They won't mean to, but they will. And they will. You'll say, I'm thinking of leaving this job that's draining me. And someone will say, but it's stable. You'll share your dream, and they'll respond with a version of, be careful. You'll feel pulled towards something, a move, a relationship, a calling, and the world will hand you a mirror filled with doubts that aren't even yours. And if you're not grounded in your own voice, you'll take their fear and carry it like it's your own truth. Now, let's make this real. Think back to a moment when you knew what you should do and didn't. Maybe you stayed in a relationship that was slowly shrinking your spirit. That pain you felt later, that wasn't regret over the outcome. That was grief over betraying your own knowing. And yet, let me tell you, your inner voice is patient. It waits. It whispers again. Maybe softer, maybe from a different angle, but it keeps going. Every time you get quiet, really quiet, that same knowing rises. It's always been there, under the noise, beneath the pressure, behind the mask. So how do you start trusting it again? You practice. You stop asking 12 people for their opinion before making a move. You let the silence teach you instead of scare you. You experiment with tiny acts of self-trust. You stop outsourcing your wisdom to people who don't have to live with your choices. And with every small decision made from alignment, not fear, you build the muscle of self-belief. Because here's the wild thing. Once you start listening to your inner voice and acting on it, and even when they don't, you know you're in the right hallway. Your intuition, your gut, your inner compass. It's not magic. It's data. It's ancient cellular level intelligence. It's the summation of everything you've seen, survived, felt, learned, feared, and hoped. It's wisdom that doesn't have words yet, but it's real. And it's yours. Don't silence it just because you can't explain it. Don't wait for the world to agree before you begin. The world might not understand your path, and that's okay. It wasn't given to them. It was given to you. And when you're in alignment with it, you move differently. You walk into rooms with a quiet knowing. You speak with clarity. You choose relationships from peace, not from proving. And you stop trying to fit into spaces that require you to shrink. So if you're in your 20s, or if you've been living like you're still trying to earn your place on this planet, here's what I need you to remember. Your inner voice knew the way long before the world even noticed you were walking. Absolutely. Here's an 800-word expanded segment for key point 2. A failure is not opposite to success. It's the foundation of it. Written in a conversational, emotionally grounded tone, aligned with the overall speech style and structure. Failure. Just that word alone can stir up so much shame. You hear it, and suddenly your brain pulls up this highlight reel of every misstep, every awkward moment, every goal you missed by a mile. It's like a mental blooper reel. Except you're not laughing. You're cringing. You're wishing you could fast forward through the uncomfortable parts of your story. But here's what no one told us in our 20s. Failure is not the enemy. It's not a detour. It's not something to avoid or something that defines your worth. It's actually one of the most honest and sacred parts of your journey, because failure, real, gut-punching failure, is a sign that you showed up, that you tried, that you stepped outside the tiny circle of what felt safe and said, I'm going to bet on myself. That's not weakness. That's courage most people never find. The real danger isn't falling on your face. The danger is living your whole life walking on eggshells trying not to fall. Look, we've been taught to associate success with perfection. But perfection is sterile. It's safe. And ironically, it's where dreams go to die. The people who go the farthest aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who learn how to get back up faster. And it's not just about resilience. It's about the wisdom failure gives you. When you board the job interview, when you launch something and no one cares, when the person you loved walks away, those aren't just painful moments. They're classrooms. You learn what you didn't know. You gain self-awareness. You get humbled in the most beautiful way. Failure strips away the noise, the ego, and all the illusions, and what's left is something raw and real. You. There's something you only get to discover about yourself on the other side of falling. You learn what you're made of. You learn how deeply you care. You learn what matters and what never did. And it's in those moments, not the shiny highlight moments, that you build the character that will carry you. Now, I'm not going to pretend failure feels good. It doesn't. It can wreck you. It can make you question everything. But what if that questioning is the point? What if the breakdown isn't the end, but the sacred pause before the breakthrough? So many of us get stuck in the fear of looking foolish. And because of that fear, we play small. We say no to the thing that excites us because we're scared of being embarrassed. We lower our voices in meetings. We play it safe in relationships. We stay in jobs we've outgrown. Not because we don't want more, but because failure feels like too much to risk. But here's the truth. Every person you admire, every book you've read, every invention that changed the world, they all came with a trail of failures behind them. It's part of the price. And the ones who make it, they're not the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who kept showing up. That's it. And sometimes when it looks like you're failing, you're actually just being rerouted. Maybe that job didn't work out because there's something better down the line. Maybe that door closed to protect you from a path that wasn't aligned. But you won't know unless you move forward. And you can't move forward if you let failure become your identity. It's not who you are. It's what happened. I want you to imagine something. Imagine your younger self, the version of you that still believed anything was possible, who hadn't yet been hurt, disappointed, discouraged. That version of you still lives inside of you. And what they need most is not a perfect version of you. They just need to know you're still trying, that you haven't given up. You know, sometimes failure isn't a sign to quit. It's a sign to recommit with better tools, better clarity, and a deeper sense of who you are. Every time you fail, you get one step closer to the thing that's meant for you. Every stumble shapes your perspective. Every wrong turn deepens your intuition. It's all part of the choreography. Even if it doesn't make sense now. So if you're in the thick of it, if you're in that messy, raw, uncomfortable middle, please hear this. You are not behind. You are becoming. And yes, it's hard, but you're not here to live a life so safe that it suffocates your soul. You're here to stretch, to grow, to surprise yourself. And maybe the real success story isn't the one where everything went right. Maybe it's the one where you kept showing up when it didn't. Because sometimes the fall isn't failure at all. It's just the part of the flight you couldn't see from the ground. Absolutely. Here's an 800-word segment expanding key point 3. Your energy is your responsibility. Protect it fiercely. Written in a conversational, grounded tone, designed to flow with the rest of the speech and deliver that signature raw, reflective impact. Let's talk about energy, not in the abstract, but in the most personal, visceral way possible. Your energy is everything. It's how you show up in the room. It's the way you think, the way you love, the way you create, the way you handle setbacks, opportunities, people. It's the life force that runs through every single one of your decisions, and it is your responsibility to protect it like your future depends on it, because it does. Most of us don't realize that we are walking around with leaks in our energy bucket. We're saying yes to things we don't mean, smiling through conversations that leave us drained, scrolling through highlight reels that convince us we're behind, giving the best of ourselves to people or habits that give nothing back. And we wonder why we're tired, unmotivated, numb, stuck. But let's be real. Nobody taught us that managing energy is just as important as managing time. No one pulled us aside in our 20s and said, hey, it's not just about doing more, it's about doing what fuels you. Instead, we were taught to grind, to hustle, to push through. When that becomes your default, burnout isn't a risk, it's a guarantee. Here's the shift. You don't owe your energy to everyone who asks for it. You don't have to explain why a conversation drains you. You don't have to apologize for needing space. You are allowed, more than allowed, obligated to create boundaries that protect your peace. And I'm not talking about being selfish. I'm talking about being clear. Because every yes is a no to something else. Every time you say yes to staying late for that person who never reciprocates, you say no to rest. Every time you say yes to people pleasing, you say no to your truth. That slow leak, it adds up. Eventually, your spark dims, your clarity fades, and your ability to show up for yourself disappears under the weight of obligations you never really chose. You get to choose. That's the point. And choosing doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it means not picking up the phone when you know the conversation will spiral into negativity. Sometimes it means walking away from the gossip at work, or stepping outside for 5 minutes when you feel your anxiety building. These tiny shifts are not small. They are powerful. They reclaim something sacred, your sovereignty over your inner world. Your energy introduces you before you say a word. You've felt this. You walk into a room, and without even speaking, you can tell who's magnetic, who's exhausted, who's bitter, who's grounded. That's not magic. That's energetic integrity. That's alignment. That's the result of someone who has learned how to guard what fuels them and let go of what drains them. And here's the hard truth. Sometimes what drains you is someone you love. Sometimes what dims your energy is a routine you built 5 years ago that no longer fits who you're becoming. Growth will require you to get honest about the parts of your life that you've outgrown, not with judgment, but with compassion. Because you can love something and still know it's no longer meant to come with you. We are not static beings. Your energy today doesn't have to match who you were yesterday. And if something inside you feels like it's trying to shift, that's not dysfunction. That's life trying to invite you into a higher version of yourself. But it takes courage to listen. It takes even more to act. You are the gatekeeper of your energy. And the moment you start treating your inner world like it's worthy of protection, everything changes. You become less reactive. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You start creating instead of consuming. You stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to feel good. When you protect your energy, You start showing up to your life, present. You start noticing the little things again, sunlight on your skin, the sound of your own laughter, how good it feels to be at peace in your body. That's not just self-care, that's self-respect. And it's a practice. You're not going to get it right every day. You will overextend. You will forget. You will find yourself burnt out again, wondering how it happened. That's okay, because now you know what to do. Now you have language for what you're experiencing. You know the signs. You can recalibrate. And when you do, you become magnetic. People will notice, not because you're louder, but because you're more you. And that's the goal, to live in such alignment that just being yourself lights up the room. So if you take nothing else from this, let it be this. Your energy is not infinite, but when you protect it, when you honor it, when you direct it, it becomes unstoppable. Here's an 800-word segment expanding key point 4. Make movement sacred, not punishment, written in a warm, reflective, conversational tone that aligns with the previous key points and fits seamlessly into the overall speech. Let's talk about movement. Movement, not workouts. Not crushing your goals in the gym. I mean movement. The way your body longs to flow, the way it naturally wants to expand, stretch, walk, sway. Somewhere along the line, we were taught to treat movement like a punishment. Like penance for what we ate, or what we didn't do, or how we look in the mirror. It became this thing tied to shame, hustle, a checklist item, another chore. But here's the truth. Your body was never meant to be punished. It was meant to be lived in, felt, honored. You were given this vessel not to shrink it or control it, but to experience life through it. Movement isn't just physical. It's emotional. It's spiritual. It's energetic. It's the way we return to ourselves. And when you begin to shift the way you think about movement, when you stop treating it like a debt you owe and start treating it like a gift you get, everything changes. Think about it. As kids, we didn't run because it burned calories. We ran because we were excited. We jumped because joy overflowed. We spun in circles because the world was dizzy and beautiful and full of wonder. Movement was an expression of being alive, pure, unfiltered aliveness. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. We began to disconnect from our bodies, to live in our heads, to measure instead of feel. And we started thinking of exercise as something we had to force ourselves to do, something we only do when we've been baby or when we're trying to fix ourselves. But what if you flipped the script? What if movement was your way back to yourself? What if every step, every stretch, every breath was a prayer of gratitude to your body? Because that's what it becomes when you let go of the pressure and start tuning in. When you stop asking, how do I look? And start asking, how do I feel? And start asking, how do I feel? You don't need a fancy gym. You don't need the perfect leggings. You don't need an hour carved out of your already chaotic schedule. You just need presence. 5 minutes of walking with your phone down, your head up, your feet grounded, a few stretches in your living room where you actually listen to what your body needs, dancing to a song you loved in high school because it makes you feel alive again. This is movement. This is medicine. And here's the thing. Your body is always talking to you. Most of us are just too distracted to listen. But when you do, when you get quiet enough to hear it, your body becomes your guide. It tells you when it's tired, when it's holding stress, when it needs to breathe deeper, rest more, move differently. Tuning in is not just self-care, it's a radical act of self-trust. Let's be real, it's not always easy. Some days your body feels like a stranger. Some days getting out of bed is the win. And that counts. That matters. Movement doesn't have to be big to be powerful. It doesn't have to be perfect to be healing. It just has to be yours. When you move with love, your body remembers. When you walk without rushing, your mind slows down too. When you stretch with intention, you expand more than muscles. You expand your capacity to feel, to process, to heal, to... That's the kind of transformation that doesn't show up on a scale or in a mirror, but it shows up in your energy, your presence, the way you carry yourself in a room, the way you show up for your life. And I promise you, when you shift from punishment to reverence, you stop chasing change and start becoming it. You begin to notice your breath. You notice your posture. You notice how good it feels to feel home in your own skin again. That kind of power, it can't be bought. It can't be rushed, but it can be remembered, reclaimed. You are not a problem to be fixed. You are a miracle to be honored. And every time you move with kindness instead of criticism, you tell your nervous system, I am safe here. I belong here. That is healing. That is freedom. That is power. So the next time you think about skipping movement because it doesn't account, or it's not enough, or it won't make a difference, remember this. Your body is not waiting for a better version of you. It's waiting for your attention right now, as it is. And the moment you start meeting your body where it is, instead of punishing it for where it isn't, you'll realize something powerful. Movement isn't what changes your body. It's what reconnects you to your life. And when you move with love, you don't just feel better. You come back to life. Absolutely. Below is an 800-word expansion of Key Point 5. Build boundaries that protect, not punish. Written in a flowing, reflective tone that feels like it would be delivered on stage to a live audience, seamlessly continuing the emotional and motivational arc of the full speech. Boundaries. Just hearing that word, most of us either feel guilty or exhausted, right? Because when we think about setting boundaries, our minds instantly go to conflict. We think about having to say no, disappointing people, having uncomfortable conversations, maybe even walking away from people we've cared about for a long time. But what if I told you that boundaries aren't about walls? They're about doors. They're not built to push people out. They're built to push people out. They're built to let the right things in. Let's reframe this. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're protection. And not just protection from others, but protection for the parts of you that are tender, evolving, and still learning how to stand strong. Boundaries are how we teach people who we are. They are the invisible signals we send that say, this is where I begin. This is where I end. And this is how I honor myself in between. The thing is, most of us don't set boundaries because we're afraid we'll hurt people. We want to be liked. We want to be needed. We want to keep the peace. But here's the truth that no one tells you. When you say yes to everything and everyone, you're silently saying no to yourself over and over again. And that wears you down emotionally, physically, spiritually. Until one day you look in the mirror and realize you're running on fumes and still trying to pour from a cup that's been empty for way too long. That's what happens when your life becomes a reaction to everyone else's demands instead of a response to your own truth. Setting boundaries isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being clear. It's about being honest with yourself and with others. It's saying, I love you, but I can't do that right now. It's saying, I need time for myself, and that doesn't mean I care about you any less. It's saying, I'm allowed to change, I'm allowed to evolve, and I'm allowed to protect the version of me that's still becoming. And listen, I get it. Boundaries feel risky. Because what if they leave? What if they leave? What if they think you're selfish? What if you lose the connection? But what if you don't? What if the people who stay, the ones who truly respect you, are the exact ones you need around you right now? Boundaries don't just filter out the noise. They make space for the real relationships, the kind where you can be yourself without performing, the kind where you can say what you mean and not walk on eggshells, the kind that give you room to breathe, room to rest, room to grow. And it's not just about other people. You need boundaries with yourself too. Boundaries with your phone, with your time, with your self-talk. How many of us are constantly available to the whole world, but emotionally unavailable to ourselves? Try this. Set a boundary with your morning. Don't pick up your phone for the first 30 minutes. Just breathe. Move. Right. That's not yo being lazy or dramatic. That's you reclaiming the beginning of your day. That's you saying, my peace matters more than my notifications. Or maybe your boundary is with the voice in your head that says, you should be doing more. When that voice shows up, gently remind it, I'm doing enough. I am enough. Because boundaries don't just manage your relationships, they shape your reality. And here's what's beautiful. The moment you set a boundary, you begin telling the truth about what matters to you. You stop shrinking. But those people were only in love with your compliance, not your truth. You don't owe anyone access to your soul just because they've been around a long time. The right people will respect your boundaries. The right people will rise to meet the higher standard you're setting for yourself, for yourself. And the rest, that's the universe making space for what's next. So I want you to stop thinking of boundaries as fences. Think of them as filters. They don't block life out. They filter in the people, experiences, and energy that actually support the version of you that's emerging. This week, choose one place in your life, just one, where your soul feels a little overextended, and ask yourself, what would it look like if I built a boundary here, not out of fear, but out of love? Love for your future, love for your peace, love for the life you're building. Because when you protect your energy, you don't just preserve your power, you amplify it. And when you set boundaries that come from love, not anger, you don't lose connection. You deepen it. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are sacred. And sacred things deserve to be protected. Absolutely. Here's the 800-word expansion of Key Point 6. You're always becoming. So let go of the timeline delivered in a natural, reflective, and empowering tone that aligns with the speech's overall message. It flows seamlessly from the prior key points and closes with a timeless, impactful final line. Let's talk about something we all carry around but rarely admit: the pressure of a ticking clock. You know that feeling? Like you're behind, like you're running out of time. Like everyone else has somehow figured it out, and you're still fumbling your way forward, trying to catch up. We've all felt it. By 25, you thought you'd have a career. By 30, a partner. By 35, maybe kids or financial freedom, or at least some peace of mind. And yet, the path keeps twisting. It's proof that you're dreaming, evolving, reaching. You wouldn't feel behind if you didn't care. You wouldn't feel restless if you weren't meant for more. That discomfort, that's life nudging you forward. Not with panic, but with purpose. So what do you do with all that pressure? You breathe. You release the grip. You stop asking, when will I get there? And start asking, who am I becoming right now? You trade the chase for presence, because that version of you that you're racing toward, they're not found on some far-off day in a perfect future. They're being shaped here in the micro moments of courage, kindness, honesty, and small daily decisions. You are already becoming them right now. Even when it doesn't look like progress, even when it feels like standing still. And I want you to hear this clearly. You don't need to catch up. You need to tune in. Tune in to what this season is here to teach you. Tune in to what your body, your intuition, your life is trying to whisper beneath the noise. Tune into the idea that you're not just building a life, you're allowing it to reveal itself. That's the shift. From pushing to partnering, from forcing to flowing, from controlling every step to trusting that where you are now is a necessary part of where you're going next. So let go of the imaginary clock. It's not serving you. You're not late. You're not lost. You're just layered, complex, human. And your journey doesn't need to make sense to anyone else. Not your parents, not your friends, not your past self. Your timeline is sacred. It's yours. You are not a moment to be measured. You are a mystery to be lived. And if you needed a reminder today, you are not behind. You are right on time. Oh.